So Salma Hayek just described on a podcast her very first sex scene that she shot in a movie, and I think her description of that event you might find surprising. Did she just give us what is perhaps the best non-religious reason to avoid watching sexually explicit content? Well, this is Jason here for Soulfire. Here on this channel, we want to offer gospel hope for a porn-filled world, reminding you that living in sexual integrity is possible. And so perhaps you're thinking, consuming sexually explicit content in Hollywood movies is different than pornography you'd find perhaps on the internet, and maybe you try to differentiate between the two. Because after all, we can tend to think, hey, the violence we see in the movies is fake. But really, is the sex fake? And is the sexual exploitation that these actors and actresses are going through, is that fake as well? Well, Salma Hayek's response when she was describing her very first scene, she said this. She really wasn't initially aware that there was going to be a sex scene in this movie, and when she found out, she began to cry as she was describing these uncomfortable shots, and she kept thinking about her family. She said she found herself thinking about her brother and her father as the cameras began to roll for that scene, and she said, quote, "When you're not you, then you can do it. But I keep thinking of my father and my brother." She said, "Are they going to see it?" Now, I think it's very interesting that she said this idea of when you're not you. In other words, when you're acting and you're trying to disassociate from your body, you're trying to pretend that you're not actually there and engaging, and here trying to do a sex scene for the very first time. That was very difficult. You're having to try to disassociate from those feelings that you're getting. But she isn't alone in her discomfort. In fact, many of the actresses from the popular series Game of Thrones described similar discomfort given the graphic brutality of the sex scenes that they were required to do, some featuring bestiality, some featuring rape and incest, and a lot of them described even sometimes using terms like trauma for what it was like to experience these scenes. In fact, in a podcast here just a month ago, actress Keira Knightley said she would no longer be doing sex scenes if the director of the film was male. She said that she wanted to get away from the so-called male gaze. You see, in order to consume this type of material, we actually have to dehumanize those who were involved in it. What Hayek's experience, which was very painful, what it really describes to us is that here she's thinking about family members that, she's a real person, and here's a real person engaging in what should be some of the most intimate moments that are reserved for private, but yet they're doing this for public with the cameras rolling that thousands or millions of people will see. If you consume sexually explicit material, even if it's not necessarily what you would consider pornography, just sexual explicit material in Hollywood movies and things like that, is that something that you would want one of your family members to engage in? Your mother, your father, your brother or sister, a son or a daughter? And if the answer to that is no, then why would you want to consume and participate in the exploitation of others who they too are humans and they have fathers, mothers, sisters, and brothers? You see, many of us may be anti-pornography, and perhaps you say, listen, I don't look at porn, I don't consume pornography, but then you would consume maybe a show like Game of Thrones, or perhaps like Netflix's recent series Bridgerton, which has a lot of sexual explicit content. And I've frequently taken shots at Netflix because Netflix is not only just a place that you can go to access movies that you can stream or rent, but Netflix is also a producer of content, and over 90% of Netflix originals contain nudity or graphic sexual content. So by that definition, Netflix is a producer and distributor of pornography. But maybe you have to ask yourself this question: exactly how much porn does it take in a movie for you to consider it porn? So in other words, if there's a 2-hour action film, or maybe it's a romance movie or a drama, and they insert 5 minutes of graphic sexual content and pornography, or 10 minutes, at what point would you say, hey, that's pornography? And so if you wouldn't tolerate just a little bit of pornography, say going to a pornography website and consuming pornography videos or pictures, well then why would you tolerate it when Hollywood jams it into a movie? Would you not also consider that pornography? Well, let me challenge you to check out my recent video on Netflix series Bridgerton, and where you're going to find that there's a certain group of people, mainly pornography websites, that are pirating Netflix's material directly because it is primarily pornography. You see, if we're to consider the value and dignity of people, then sexually explicit content, whether it's described as pornography or it's just inserted into movies, is something that dehumanizes and devalues them. Well, let me know what you think in the comments section. This is Jason for Soulfire. Here on this channel, we want to offer gospel hope for a porn-filled world. Like this video if it was helpful, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and I will catch you in the next one.